Hello and welcome back to the ArchFlow Framework session series. In the previous session, we looked at the ArchFlow functional design phase, and in this last session of the series, we will take a look at the remaining two design phases of the ArchFlow. This is the security and infrastructure phase and the final synthesis phase. So with that said, let's look at the commands available for the last two design phases, which cover the security and the infrastructure one. They're pretty much similar or same to the ones we discussed previously. We use the same three commands, the analyze to come up with the architecture decisions, the ADR review command to review every one of those, and then followed by the generate command to generate artifacts for a given phase. We won't go into the details about each one of those commands across those two design phases because they are pretty much similar to what we already discussed last time. Instead, we will take a look at the artifacts that we generate for those two phases. In the security phase, we try to analyze the threats and define controls using the STRIDE framework. As part of that process, the AI agent will come up with the couple of artifacts, basically including the threat model. In that artifact or document, we use basically the STRIDE analysis to identify the attack vectors per components. We also assigned the threat IDs with severity and mitigation as well. Then we have the risk register artifact or document, which documents basically the risk decisions, the mitigated ones, accepted and residual ones as well. And then we also have the control mapping YAML file, which maps basically the security controls to threats and requirements. It also includes implementation details and ownership details as well. We also have a trust boundary diagram included, which visualizes the security zones and data flows across boundaries. The key outputs of this design phase is basically the threat IDs, which are linked to the mitigating architecture decisions, then the risk acceptance decisions with business rationale, the control traceability from threat to control to requirements, and then the residual risk profile, which is obviously important for the stakeholders. So that covers the security phase. In the infrastructure phase, we try actually to translate the architecture into deployable infrastructure and operational procedures. As part of that process, the AI agent will generate a number of artifacts, including the infrastructure document, which includes things like the VPC design, the compute specification, database configuration, security groups, and cost estimates at the end. Then we have the deployment document, which covers the CI/CD pipeline design, the environment promotions, rollback procedures, and any GitHub actions that you might have in your workflow. Then in the observability document, we cover the logging strategy, the metrics, the tracing dashboards, and any alerts that are necessary for the solution. And then we also have the service level objectives YAML file, which basically are represented in a machine readable document with targets, thresholds, and NFR traceability information in them. And then as the last document, we also create a runbook, which contains incident response procedures, common issues, CLI commands, and escalation paths. Obviously, this document is only the initial version, which then gets adapted as we start implementing the solution. So, and there's also a deployment diagram as well in there. So that covers the last two remaining design phases. What's left now is basically the last phase, which is the synthesis phase. And in that phase, we have a couple of commands which then produce different types of documents in which we try to consolidate basically all the information that we have in the previous phases created, or the artifacts, and then present them in different ways depending on the target audience. The first command is basically to create an architecture overview document for high-level overviews of the solution, for executive meetings and such. Then we have an optional or prompt command to create a full detailed solution architecture document, which can be given to the delivery team directly so that they can start immediately working on the solution. And then the last command is the plan command to create basically the implementation plan, including the cost estimates, team size, phased plan, and so on. So let's maybe look now into those commands. So for the architecture overview document, we have one option that we can provide to the command, and that's basically the audience, so that we can change basically the tone and the details of the document. We have three values available to choose from. First is the executive, the technical, and the review board values, which change basically the tone and the content of the architecture overview document. The default one is a technical. Then for the solution architecture document command, we can provide basically only the version, document version, which will be integrated inside the document, and everything else is basically then taken from the design phases and the artifacts by the AI agent, and then incorporated with all the details into that document. The plan command has a bit more parameters to it. You can specify parameters which include a timeline which you want the project to complete, a team size if you know it up front. You can also specify any one of those, and then the AI agent will then try to estimate basically how big the team is if you have the timeline, or the other way around. You can also choose the methodology that the team uses to implement the solution, and you can also specify the base rate profile depending on what types of engineers you have working on the project, so that your cost calculation actually meets or is correct in the end. But you can also tweak that basically directly inside the prompt, so that you get the right numbers out of it. So that basically completes our ArchFlow framework coverage. Please note that this is the initial version of the framework. You can and probably will find some issues here and there, but you have direct access to the workflow files, so you can fix those as you go, and even adapt or add new artifacts depending on your needs as well. Also very important to keep in mind that this is a workflow and an AI agent integration is meant basically to be used only as a tool. You are still the primary decision maker. Thank you very much, and have fun.